Hey guys, welcome back to the garden. I am coming to you today from under my olive trees, and today we are not going to be doing a garden tutorial video or even just a gardening video. We are going to talk about a gardening documentary that I watched. The documentary I watched was called Back to Eden, and I have been hearing about this from gardening channels like David the Good for a long time, and they're like, it's a great documentary, you gotta watch it. And I don't usually have an hour and a half to sit down and watch something, so I had like a ton of dishes and laundry to do, so I'm like, I'm gonna put my earbuds in and I'm going to listen to it while I'm doing that. And oh my gosh, within the first 6 minutes, now I know what everyone was talking about. Okay, so first of all, the images are beautiful. Like it is put together so beautifully, and then it has its own original music that goes with it that they created for the documentary, and it's almost relaxing to watch. Like, and there was so much information. Like in that first 6 minutes, it was like intro, the guy talking about his garden, his name is Paul, and then it goes to the imagery and the music, and it was just like the whole experience just in the first 6 minutes. And that hour and a half was packed with so much information. So I'm just going to share with you guys some of the highlights that I got out, the information. There's so much more in there. I'm not spoiling it in any way because there was just so much information, but these were kind of the main takeaways that I got that I remember like right off the top of my head. So first of all, so it's this guy named Paul who has a garden up in Washington State, and he used to live in California when he was young, and his parents had gardens, and he wanted to move to Washington for a different kind of culture. He moved to Washington State and he had a garden, and he was struggling to get things grow. It was a ton of work. So one day he was out in the garden and he was talking to God, and he was, saying, show me how you do it, because I go out into a forest and there's like, it takes care of itself. There's no one out there watering, for all those years, way back when, our ancestors, they didn't have a hose hooked up to the side of the house watering their garden. The garden hose was not invented until the 1600s, okay? So in nature, things take care of themselves. So he was like, okay, well, how does this happen? And so what he observed was that, like, if you go into the woods, the trees, every year they lose their leaves. It falls to the ground and it rots on the ground and essentially makes its own compost. So it's the mulch and the leaves are creating compost. So he said, okay, can I take this idea into my garden? So he started mulching heavily his garden, and what he found was over time more and more nutrients were in the garden, and the mulch was not acting just as like a compost, but it was also creating like a covering to keep moisture in. So he has an orchard that he has never watered. He has, I think it's a peach tree orchard that has never been watered and produces tons of fruit. Like, can you imagine having a part of your yard that you never water and it produces food? Like, when he sets up his seeds, like his lettuce seeds, he waters them to get them like just started and established, and he does not water them. So he waits for rainfall, and when rainfall comes, the water stays in the soil because the soil is so rich because of all that mulching. And he doesn't test his soil. He has never tested his soil. He has never worried about nitrogen and phosphorus and all these things that are in there that, when you buy like chemical fertilizers, it's like 10-10-10 or whatever, because it has all those different things in it. He just puts good stuff on top and lets it balance itself. And he has grown things like, I think he said Swiss chard next to blueberries, which one is alkaline and the other's not, and they're still just happy because the stuff that they're growing in is so good. People go to his farm and they always comment on how much water all of his produce has and how it's not bitter. It's all sweet. Even things that are normally kind of on the bitter side are sweet, because when plants get stressed, they become bitter. So he talks about also these chemical fertilizers that you do put in the ground, and what happens is when you put these in the ground, because they're chemicals, over time they actually deplete the minerals that are already in the soil. So, and because you're tilling it up, so you're destroying all these good microorganisms and everything that's already in there. So a potato from like the 1940s has a totally different nutrition profile than a potato today. So you're not getting the nutrition that people way back when got, because we are adding chemicals and all this stuff to the soil because we think that we can do better than God and nature as man. Like, we think, I can make this better, I can make this more efficient. I was just listening to like a podcast the other day about how they were, you know, working on crop rotation and all these chemicals and herbicides, and they were trying to make it more efficient, get more food quicker, faster, less pests, less disease. And it's like, yeah, that's great for food production, but in the long run, what are you doing? What are you doing to that food? Is that food less nutritious? Is it going to cause other problems? Are you disturbing the natural balance of nature by killing off all these bugs that all play a part in the ecosystem? Are they food for a beneficial bug? Like, you know, when we start messing with nature, out of, I don't know, sometimes I think it's great. I mean, obviously we need our food industry, but sometimes I think that there's just excess, a lot of excess, because how much food gets wasted and thrown away, you know? And if we were getting more nutritious food, would we need so much, you know? But anyway, that's just a whole different topic, whole different subject, but that's just got me thinking about that. I actually watched a demonstration that David the Good did. There's a truck going by, hold on. Okay, so I watched a demonstration that David the Good did about how tilling the soil really destroys like the good things in it. Like, if you have really tough soil, usually farmers will till it and amend it, put chemicals in it to be able to grow in it right away, because they want to do it right away. Versus if you don't till the soil, you can mulch on top, and that mulch will eventually break down and create good soil. But if you're in a hurry, that's when people till and whatnot. David the Good went to a demonstration at a farm or a nursery, something like that, where they had 2 jars, and they had a clump of tilled soil and they had a clump of non-tilled soil. And so they put these clumps in the 2 jars, and the tilled soil, even though it was like hardened into a clump, just like the non-tilled soil, when they put it into the jar of water, it started dispersing. All the little grains of dirt started dripping down into the water. So essentially, if you think about this on a large scale, when it rains, your dirt is being displaced, your soil is being displaced. There was something behind me. And so that's not what you want. You don't want your soil eroding. You want it to hold water for your plants, not to wash away. So the jar that had the non-tilled soil in it, it just stayed like a clump at the top of the jar and was sucking up water like a sponge. Like, that's what you want. You want your soil to hold water so your plants can draw from it, can drink from it like a straw. That's what you want. So I am even more convinced that mulching and not tilling the soil to keep all the good bacteria and air pockets and all the things in it is the way to go. Like, for a sustainable garden that's less work, that is the way to go. So yeah, this documentary was so good, and Paul, who owns the garden farm, whatever you want to call it, he is so passionate, and he has so much faith in God, and he defers everything to God. Like, he's like, when he runs into something he doesn't know how to do, he says, okay, God, how do you do it? And sometimes the answer comes, or he observes it in nature, and like, that's the way. Like, we can't do it better than God does it. So if he does it in nature, we need to learn from that. And a verse from the Bible actually says in Job 12:7-9, but ask the animals and they will teach you, or the birds in the sky and they will teach you, or speak to the earth and it will teach you, or let the fish in the sea inform you. Which of all these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this? Like, nature knows, why don't we? So we should take a lesson from above, and you guys should go watch the Back to Eden documentary. I'm gonna go ahead and link that below. I'm also gonna link David the Good's video with that soil test that I told you about, which is really cool also. So alrighty guys, that's it for this week. Thanks for watching, and yeah, have a good week. Bye guys. Okay, so let's start talking about it. Oh my gosh, there's a spider web on my eye. Yeah, okay. Obviously I'm in my olive tree. I'm like sitting on the branches because yeah, there's spiders everywhere. Anyway, so